What started as a normal day for the Harris family quickly spiraled into a nightmare no one was prepared for. King Harris, the outspoken and controversial son of rap icon T.I. and Tiny, is now lying in a cold ICU room, hooked up to machines, fighting for every single breath. The family, usually known for their loud personalities and constant drama, has been reduced to silence and tears. T.I. himself, a man the world has always seen as strong, calculated, and unshakable, has been caught breaking down in a way the public has never witnessed before. And as the hours stretch on with no certainty of survival, the Harris family is left clinging to faith, while fans around the globe are in total shock. When news first broke that King had been rushed to the hospital, nobody expected the situation to be this severe. At first, the rumors sounded like the usual exaggerations of social media. King was injured, King collapsed, King had a scare but is okay. But as more and more reports came out, the truth became impossible to ignore. Something was seriously wrong. Doctors were forced to rush him into intensive care. His condition, though not fully explained at the time, was said to be critical. The words life-threatening started circulating, and suddenly, what everyone thought was another headline in the never-ending King Harris saga turned into a story that felt like life or death. Inside the hospital, the atmosphere was heavy, suffocating. The usually chaotic energy of the Harris family was replaced by a tense quietness. I paced back and forth in the waiting area, his face pale, his jaw clenched tight, his eyes red with exhaustion. For a man who had built his entire career on control and dominance, this moment exposed a raw vulnerability. Tiny, sitting a few feet away, gripped her phone like it was her lifeline, tears streaming down her cheeks as she whispered prayers over and over again. Other family members gathered close, whispering, comforting, but everyone knew the truth. There was no comfort to be had until they knew whether King would make it through the night. What shook people the most was the timing. King Harris had always been a lightning rod for controversy, whether it was his public arguments, viral live videos, or constant clashes with strangers and even family. He had built a reputation as the rebellious son who couldn't be tamed, someone who seemed untouchable in his own world of chaos. But now, lying on a hospital bed surrounded by beeping machines and worried doctors, King's bravado had been stripped away. This was not the loud, cocky teenager the internet loved to criticize. This was a boy in pain, a son fighting for his life, and a family crumbling under the weight of fear. The Harris family's pain was obvious the moment they stepped into the hospital. Tiny was spotted with her sister, both of them crying uncontrollably as they tried to gather strength. Zonique, King's older sister, reportedly broke down the moment she saw him unconscious, tubes running across his face, his body weak and unresponsive. For her, it was a sight that no sibling should ever have to see. Even family friends who rushed to the hospital were stunned into silence. The loud conversations, the jokes, the arguments, everything stopped. All that remained was the constant echo of hospital monitors and the sound of quiet sobs in the hallway. T's breakdown, however, was what truly shocked fans. He has always portrayed himself as a man of steel, someone who could handle beefs, controversies, and public scandals with his head held high. But this was different. Witnesses described how he leaned against a wall, his hands covering his face, tears falling as he tried to keep his composure. For the first time in years, the King of the South looked powerless. No amount of fame, money, or influence could change the fact that his son's life was hanging by a thread. As doctors worked around the clock, the updates were vague and terrifying. "Critical but stable" was the phrase repeated over and over. That kind of phrase gives hope but doesn't guarantee anything. It meant King was alive, yes, but it also meant things could go left at any moment. Every beep of the monitor became a trigger. Every alarm sent shockwaves through the hearts of his loved ones. Nurses rushed in and out, whispers filled the corridors, and the family could do nothing but wait. Waiting, in many ways, is its own kind of torture. While the Harris family suffered behind hospital doors, the outside world erupted with speculation. Social media became flooded with rumors, hashtags, and emotional posts. Fans demanded answers. Was King going to survive? What really happened to land him in this position? Did it have anything to do with his recent public arguments and the stress he'd been under? No one knew for sure, and the lack of clarity only fueled the storm. Hashtags like Sauer Pray for King and Dauer Harris family started trending worldwide. Strangers who had once mocked King for his antics were suddenly united in grief, realizing that beneath the headlines was a young man fighting for his life. What made the story even more heartbreaking were the flashbacks to King's recent public behavior. Just weeks earlier, he had been seen arguing with his parents during a live broadcast, insisting that he wanted to be his own man, that he was tired of being overshadowed by the Harris legacy. At the time, many dismissed it as teenage rebellion, but now those words felt haunting. It was almost as if King had been fighting battles nobody fully understood. And as he lay motionless in the ICU, those same arguments replayed in his family's minds. T.I. no doubt wondered whether he had been too hard on his son, whether their arguments had pushed King further away instead of bringing him closer. Tiny, on the other hand, likely wished she could go back and hug her son tighter, tell him everything was going to be okay before life reminded them how fragile everything really is. As hours turned into days, the updates grew more emotional. Doctors explained that King's condition was not improving as quickly as they hoped. Complications had set in, making his recovery uncertain. The words life support were quietly mentioned, though not confirmed. For any family, those words are enough to shatter every ounce of hope. Imagine sitting in a waiting room, knowing that your child is alive only because of machines, and that their survival depends on factors outside of anyone's control. That's the reality the Harris family faced. Meanwhile, videos began circulating online of fans holding candlelight vigils outside the hospital. Strangers gathered, holding signs with King's name, praying loudly for his recovery. Some sang, some cried, but all of them stood united. It was a rare moment in today's divided world, a moment when fans, friends, and even critics put aside differences to rally around a family in pain. For the Harris family, knowing that so many people cared gave them strength, but it didn't erase the fear that lingered every single second. And then came the moment that broke everyone's heart. King's younger siblings were finally allowed to visit him in the ICU. Sources revealed that the children were overwhelmed by the sight of their brother unconscious, his body connected to machines. One of them reportedly whispered, "Wake up, King, please don't leave us." That single plea captured the raw emotion of the entire situation. For all his flaws, for all his controversies, King Harris was loved deeply. He was a brother, a son, a friend, and now, the possibility of losing him was too much for anyone to bear. T.I.'s cries echoed through the sterile hospital halls that night like thunder rolling through a quiet storm. The kind of cry that stops even nurses in their tracks. One staff member later whispered that they heard him scream, "Not my son! Not like this!" And in those few words, the entire building seemed to freeze. It wasn't just the voice of a celebrity in pain. It was the voice of a father whose heart was being ripped out of his chest in real time. The kind of pain that doesn't care about fame, money, or status. The kind of pain that makes your knees give out under the weight of grief. Tiny, overwhelmed by it all, collapsed into his arms the moment she heard those words. She wasn't crying quietly anymore. She was sobbing, shaking, clutching T.I. like letting go would mean watching their entire world fall apart. And maybe it already was. Around them, King's siblings cried too, some covering their faces, others holding each other tightly, completely broken. It wasn't just a family falling apart. It was a soul-level collapse, the kind only love can cause. But strangely, in the middle of that collapse, you could see it, how tightly they all loved him, how far they were willing to go just to keep him here. Outside the hospital walls, the world was watching. Millions of people refreshing timelines, scanning news updates, waiting for something, anything, that might give them hope. What started as a medical emergency had now become something far bigger. King Harris's fight for life had turned into a global story, one that cut through race, class, and culture. It was no longer just about a rapper's son in the ICU. It was about humanity. It was about how fragile life can be, and how easily everything can change with a single call. People who had once criticized King for his controversies were now kneeling in prayer. Twitter trolls had gone silent, replaced by heartfelt messages and candle emojis. Even strangers who couldn't care less about hip-hop suddenly found themselves emotionally invested in a boy they'd never met. Because behind the fame, behind the headlines and the tabloid noise, this wasn't a celebrity story anymore. It was a family's nightmare unfolding in real time. And as raw and public as their pain had become, the Harris family never stopped showing what truly mattered. Love. Not the performative kind. The real kind. The kind that shows up when you're too weak to stand. The kind that keeps vigil by a hospital bed for hours. The kind that screams in the hallway because the silence is too loud to bear. Doctors have said they'll be releasing another update soon. But until then, the family is in a place no parent, no sibling, no one should ever have to be: limbo. Every tick of the clock is like a hammer to the chest. Every beep of the monitor is a reminder that King is still here, but only just. They wait, they pray. And in their waiting, 1 million people now wait with them. Whether King survives or not, one thing is certain: nothing will ever be the same again. This moment, the tears, the fear, the whispers in the hallways, has already changed the Harris family forever. It scarred them in ways the public may never fully see. Because behind the songs, behind the luxury, behind the headlines, there's something raw playing out. A desperate, human plea for one more chance. And now, as this chapter momentarily closes, one chilling question lingers like smoke in the air. Will King Harris wake up and defy the odds? Or will this become the heartbreak that haunts hip-hop forever? Only time and King's strength will tell.